Good morning, everybody. This is our Exam 2 extra credit, and we're doing the USCS visual classification for CMT 3433. I'm Marshall Motley, and this is Sarah Sargent. She'll be doing all the physical activities for this. And today we'd like to start off by doing step 1 of identifying the color, odor, and the texture of our soil sample that we have collected today.
Good morning. The first thing that we do is we get our soil sample. As you can see, it's a reddish brown color. When you smell it, it has the smell of dirt and grass, so there's a little bit of organic material in here, and the texture is fine, and you can tell that because it can break into smaller pieces like so. So now that we have this information, we will record it. What are you talking about?
After Sarah's visual classification, we have recorded our data for our reddish brown color, our odor of soil or earthy odor, and then our texture of a fine material. Now we'd like to step into the identification of the major soil constituent, being our soil type as well as the percentage of whatever secondary we might find.
So first off, if we look at the material, we can tell that it's red dirt clay, so clay. And it's got some parts of like grass in it or concrete, so that we will say that it is mostly clay with trace amounts of organic material, fines, and concrete. The reason for the concrete being in the soil sample is because we obtained our sample from outside the concrete lab where concrete washout is typically performed.
So now, after determining our soil type and our percentage of traces, we now recorded our data and we decided it was a clay soil with traces of organic material. And now we're going to follow up into our next piles that Sarah has led aside for our dry strength test, our dilatancy test, and our plasticity test.
For the dry strength test, the procedure for that is just take a larger piece and squeeze it between your fingers and see how hard it is to break apart. If it was a silt material, it would be extremely easy to break apart and have a hard time holding together under its own weight. As you can see, the clay is a little bit harder to break apart, so that's our dry strength test. For dilatancy, we grab a sample and we wet it so it can have the consistency of a putty as I mold it in my hands. Okay, once it's the consistency of a soft putty, we observe the reaction during shaking, squeezing, and tapping vigorously. As you can see, that there's hardly any reaction as we tap as far as water coming to the surface. Our final test is the plasticity test or the snake test. So for this test, I take the sample and roll it into it's also called the snake method. So you roll it into a cylinder, and the diameter should be 1/8 of an inch. So I'm kind of using my pencil as a gauge for what 1/8 of an inch looks like. And then the instructions tell us to fold it and repeat it until it breaks. So one of the things that we should be recording is the pressure required to roll when it is near its crumbling state. So it takes about medium pressure. You have to. Another thing that we are going to do is see how it supports its own weight. So it can support its own weight, whereas a silt would not be able to do that. It's also, it can be molded back into a coherent mass. So that tells us about its cohesiveness. And the final question is the toughness during kneading. to describe the plasticity and toughness. So it has a considerable toughness, meaning that it has a high plasticity, and that means that the soil is clayey. At this point, we would put it in the oven.
And record our information.
Correct.
After Sarah's classification, we have gone through and applied every single reaction we had for our dry strength, our dilatancy, our plasticity, our pressure needed, our support that was given from the clay material, our moldability after she had reformed it into a singular mass, and the toughness of the test. So now, lastly, we will condition ourselves by determining the moisture condition in the clay material, which Sarah has done for us now.
Here I have our field sample, which we have classified as in a moist condition, just because we haven't oven dried it, so it's still a bit moist. Whereas this is the clay that was able to be remolded after the snake test, and that would be in a wet condition because it's got a little bit more water to it than the field sample. So moist or wet, moist.
And now we'll go through and we will record our conditions and we will finally classify our material. Thank you for pertaining to our Exam 2 extra credit, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.